All right. Hello,
A lot
everyone.
of people aren't sitting.
Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started. All right. So, welcome to our final event of Transition Week. It's been a really good week so far. We've had amazing guests with a helping hands and skits and bits improv, and then our wonderful performers at Moonlight Academy. Um, and we decided to wrap things up this week. We would have a chat with some of our community members who have been transitioning for a while now. Now, everyone's journey is definitely unique and personal, but it's still good to hear from other people's experiences. So we have a few guests here who will be able to share their experiences with you today. First off, I'll start with introducing everyone. Start with myself. I'm Shay. I'm the assistant director here at the Trans Academy. I've been transitioning now for almost 11 years. So I will go through the list and we can hear their story. So to begin with, we'll start over here with Clint. Introduce yourself and can you provide a brief overview of your gender transition journey?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Clint. I've been transitioning for about 10 years on Saturday, it's anniversary on Saturday. And pretty much I'd say my journey started somewhere 2011 after college. I knew I needed therapy, I needed to get somewhere going. Something was wrong, you know, that feeling of, you know, it's hard to describe for each person. It's something that's deeply personal. But dysphoria. I didn't know what transgender was until about 2013 when I got my best therapist, who then led me on to a gender therapist, in which then I transitioned. Around 2014 is when I counted. I got my first HRT around that time. And really, I started on the injections, and I couldn't handle it myself. Luckily, I was surrounded by people who helped me, people who cared for me. I was polyamorous. I had 2 partners who were absolutely wonderful. I lucked out completely in that situation because, I mean, I couldn't give my own shots because I was afraid of the needle. They were the ones that gave me my first injections. Well, I mean, okay, I gave my first injection in the doctor's office because they needed to see me do it, but I then promptly passed out on the table about 5 minutes later because I couldn't handle it. But that was fun. We got over that. Overall, I got on the pills. It's been going on for quite a while now. And I recently got my top surgery about a year ago, a year and a few months. So that's been great. About 9 years in, I got my top surgery. And really, I've been surrounded by, I've managed to really find myself throughout that entire process, in which, you know, you go through the motions of who am I? Over the time, I mean, it took me a long time, but eventually I did find myself. It's probably somewhere around 2017. But yeah, I'll pass it over.
Hello, Sarlo. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey so far and introduce yourself?
Hello. I'm Sarlo. I also go by Rory. Uh, sorry. I've been socially transitioned. There's 2 times because you come out multiple times. Lots of you guys know this. I initially started socially transitioning about 10 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. That sounds right. I'm a little bit. The past couple years have been long and short at the same time. So, but it's been a while, and I came out socially at work in about 2016, 2017. Before that, I was just sort of out with like people I knew, and then that was the first time I was out like publicly, like big publicly, was at work, and I use they them pronouns. I identify as agender, and I am AFAB. So for me to become more of the neutral that I want, I tend towards to go more masculine. So I sort of tend to refer to myself sometimes as trans mask because I go for that more masculine vibe to get to what for me feels like neutral. I do not do tea or anything like that. I don't really want to. I mainly just take my sort of hormone that I take is birth control to like help with the gender dysphoria stuff, but without having to like take tea and like have those different changes because I don't really want those different changes. Um and that's the main thing for me right now is that I'm out socially. I have not had like I haven't gotten surgery or anything. I don't do T, I don't do E. I just try to sort of be neutral.
And that's perfectly valid. We love you how you are. All right, Random, tell us about yourself and your
Also,
journey.
also stages and crowds. Anyways, so let's see. So, hi, I'm Lucia. 28 years old. Have been, I guess, socially, you could say, since like in digital spaces and everything, since somewhere between 16 to 18 years old. More recently within virtual spaces from around 2020 to 2022, I guess, if you had to ballpark, like, like within the VR world and everything on that space. Medically started transitioning about 7 months ago, actually, which has been very interesting. And originally I was going to be very quiet about it, but the thing is, within like a month of me starting, I guess I'm really sensitive to estrogen and some hormones, which is good and bad. But what happened is several of my colleagues at my work actually figured it out very quickly, and I'm like, well, all right, I guess I might as well just come out and say something at this point. So I've been out at work and in my day-to-day life for about the last, about the last 6 months. So, but overall, yeah, nice to be completely out, nice to be completely open. I'm trans femme. I go by she, her. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And thank you so much. 1 year is going to sneak up on you before you know it.
True.
All right. Yes.
Uh,
Oh, did you have anything else to add?
No.
Nope. All right. Essek, tell us about yourself. What's your
Okay,
overview of
my
your
name
transition
is
journey so far?
oh,
Go ahead.
yes. Hi, my name is Essek. I go by he, they pronouns. At first, at the beginning, I came out to myself as, I guess you would say, genderqueer and gender nonconforming. And then as the years went on, when I went to college, I came out again as a trans man. So a little bit of a rundown. I've been on hormones now for about 5 years or so. I am out. I will say though that for me personally, um, stealth in some situations, meaning people may not know that I am trans. In some situations, sometimes that happens a lot, like when I'm at work, because right now I am in a sort of, I guess you could say, more conservative area, but that's fine. My family really cares and loves me, and my friends all know. So my life is pretty good.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing. All right. So I want to reiterate before I move on. Everyone's transition journey is very unique to themselves. The goal of transitioning is to find a state of gender euphoria or acceptance and happiness with yourself. And for every person, that can look a little different. That could also involve different stages. Some people prefer hormones. Some people need to seek surgeries. Some are comfortable with just dressing up or nothing at all. Each is valid. The goal is your own happiness. So don't feel like you have to uh, marathon it or compete with other people. All right. So today's format is going to be basically a question and answer. I'm going to ask our lovely guests here a bunch of questions. I'm going to just throw them out and let them decide if they feel like answering. So we'll get started with that. The first question is, your transition experiences. Reflecting on your transition, could you share your general thoughts and experiences and how it's affected you socially, physically, in tandem with other factors? Does anyone feel like answering that?
I can go for it. Transitioning socially, transitioning physically, transitioning like for a while. Really, altogether, it is a journey. It kind of carves your path in a way that you will cut out people that you never knew beforehand you needed to cut out. You never knew you needed certain people in your life. Really, transitioning takes on its whole, what would you say, a whole form. For me, it's been quite a whirlwind. I mean, I lost pretty much all of my friends previously. I mean, I barely kept in contact with them because my mental health was just down. Mental health is very hard to keep intact during transition because you got a lot going on. But it is important to see a therapist, and I swear by my meds, swear by the meds I'm on. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have happened, and I like to surround myself with queer people now. I like to surround myself with people who understand. Don't really have a tolerance for anyone who could be negating the way I feel or the person I am. And hold on, what did I say in my notes? Sorry, I have notes floating over here. Okay. Yeah, my general experience has been, oh goodness, this is intense, but I needed to do this. Oh God, this is wonderful. I'm experiencing such gender euphoria, but the world is scary. Oh, the world is a little less scary because I carved my path and found my people. And now I'm at the point where I am my own person and I feel more like me every single day.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to take a crack at answering that one?
I'll go next.
Sure.
So my transition started because we actually make jokes about this still in our friend group. Our friend group stayed together. The funny part about the friend group staying together is turns out we're all queer and we just didn't know yet. So that's why our friend group stick together, was because like one of our friends, like my best friend in the whole world, he's my closest friend. I would call him my moirail, for anyone who knows that word. I can tell there's at least one name in the audience that knows what that means. But he's the one of our group who started transitioning first. And because of him transitioning, I started to figure out about being trans and what that was. And at the same time, I started to figure out like what asexuality was, which was a big deal for me at that time too. And what's been interesting for me as I've been reflecting on it has been the way that I experience gender as an autistic person. Because I'm an autistic person. I just recently, as an adult, got a diagnosis. And it's interesting that the more I was looking into autism and stuff, the more I was discovering that we tend to experience gender and connections to our bodies differently than holistics do. And so that was interesting to me to see, like, how a bunch of autistic people will identify as trans or will identify as non-binary because we have a different perspective of our bodies because of how our brains work. And I just think that's really cool. And also I think it's really comforting to know that there's other people like me who are going through that exact thing. Because I spent a long time thinking that there weren't. What was that word even? That was just a sound. I went through for a long time thinking that there weren't other people like me. And now I'm finding out, oh, not only are there people like you, but there's people like you. Like, and it's been really, really impactful.
I love that. No, you're definitely not alone. Especially in our community, plenty of us around. I find it hilarious that you said that. It turned out a lot of your personal friend group ended up being queer because I had a very similar experience as well. It's nice to have it's nice to have a friend in the group who goes before you, try just basically to help you discover yourself a little bit. It
Yeah,
definitely
the one
eases
person
things a
in the
bit.
group, the one person in the group who's like, "Hey, I'm this," and everyone goes, "Wait, wait,
Mm-hmm. It gets the conversation going a bit. It's the wheels turning.
Mhm.
All right, thanks for sharing. Does anyone else want to answer that? Sure.
So I guess this is partially from doing so socially and being so much into the digital space and everything, and being a geek myself and software engineer for a living. But when
Mm-hmm.
I came out, no one was surprised, which is what really surprised me. Like pretty much everyone's like, we know. Like, to put it in perspective, I talked to my ex-fiance, two ex-girlfriends. To quote my ex-fiance, oh, I knew. What was it? One of my ex-girlfriends is like, yeah, you always acted like a girl, that makes sense. Another one's like, oh, I just treated you like a girlfriend anyways. Like, from my perspective, it was like, huh, okay, so basically, for a lot of people, like, for a few people, they were making more of a mental effort to treat me as masculine than they actually were to treat me as feminine, which I find very interesting. So from my yeah, it was really weird. Like, honestly, like I'd expected a lot more issues and whatnot. I do have a few friends and family and whatnot who I don't really speak to anymore, but that was kind of inevitable. You know, not everyone's going to agree with your decision.
That's true. I'm sure it was a massive relief though. When they
Oh
did
yeah,
tell
you're like
you.
super stressed out, and like everyone starts telling you, yeah, we knew, we knew, we knew, we knew, we knew,
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah.
I was talking to
No.
one person. Well, I talked to one person. They proceeded to go on for a half hour listing everything from childhood that I'd forgotten. I'm like, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Couldn't have
Which
said
would be my
anything
sister.
sooner.
Which would be my sister, who's actually in the audience.
Hello.
Yeah. But anyways.
Perfect. That's
But yeah,
amazing.
no. I found very interesting, like, a lot of my female colleagues and female friends I've grown a lot closer to since. So.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to hear that. Especially transitioning in the workplace, it can be very, very
It was
nerve-wracking at first, but if you
it
get that
was
support, go ahead.
true. Well, I was very androgynous looking to begin with. So, like, for example, I think it was like a month whenever I was like actually decided to like put on makeup and everything. I was already getting called man by a lot of people, like before homogeneity had even done anything. So, you know, I kind
That's
of believed
awesome.
yeah. So for me, it was not too bad on that one.
No, definitely getting
That's
your
not
support in the workplace
yeah.
could be a massive relief.
Absolutely, yeah. They went through and reprinted my badge and changed my name in the system and all that and everything. So yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else?
Absolutely.
Would you like to take a turn at that question? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would say, definitely. I would say socially was pretty easy for me. You know, I looked pretty androgynous and masculine, and then when I went on hormones, you know, things got a little bit easier. I would say probably it was difficult for my family to kind of like get on board. Like, oh, can y'all hear me? Or am I like shutting out?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. Sometimes like, my quest like has a mind of its own. But yeah, what I was gonna say is, I mean, at first my family had a hard time, but they surprisingly came around. So I know that's like super rare for some people, but um they came around and they call me, a boy, and I'm their son, and which is like kind of wild because in the beginning they weren't really much on board, but yeah. So.
I'm glad they came around. Sometimes people just need a little bit of time to get used to things. It could be a big change for them as well. All right. So, in what ways has transition impacted your life positively? Oh. Uh-oh.
I don't know why.
Come on back
cut
up
off.
there. You're not free yet.
Oh my god. Oh my god. This is so bad.
Would anyone like to take a shot at that one?
Sure. Transitioning has been, I mean, total, like, it's the answer. It was the answer for me, like, personally, in the obvious sense of I'm trans and I needed to transition. Major mental load off. I can say that, like I was saying before, I'm me. Woohoo! It's great. And I met people like Captain Sarlo was saying. I met people like me, and oh my goodness, the power of knowing other people like you, rather than pretending to be something that you're not and just kind of masquerading yourself around with people that are essentially strangers to you and might even do you harm mentally. So it's really nice to be able to be yourself, be able to connect with people like yourself, and it's really an uplifting experience. That really it's hard to it's I wouldn't know how to exactly translate having no community to having a community, because it's such a stark difference in how things can go. If I had the Trans Academy like this, I say this a lot, but if I had the Trans Academy back at the start of my transition, I think it would have totally been a different case for me, because I was alone at first. But as I progressed and I learned more and I became, more of what I am, I met people who accepted me for that. I met people who accepted me for me, and being accepted and being perceived as what you want to be is incredibly powerful for your life. In my opinion, it has been for me, but it definitely has been a positive impact for me. I mean, of course we have our strife. It's hard for in a lot of places around the world, in America. Like I had it. I had it easy compared to a lot of people, because I had some help. I had my partners helping me, and I can totally understand people not having someone in that instance. Having those people with me was probably what kept me going, and then through that, I was able to find more people who were more directly like me, and really, I mean, overall, saved my life. Saved my life, and it continues to do so.
I'm glad you were able to find some community. Very important. Would anyone else like to take
For
a shot at
me,
answering that? Yeah, go ahead.
It seems we're kind of going in a line, so just I'll just keep it consistent. um, it's been really positive for me. I'm still dealing with all of it still, because I'm still coming to terms with sound. I don't mean coming to terms with it in the way that, like, I mean, like, understanding myself is what I mean by coming to terms with it. And
There you are. Took me forever to
for
find you.
me, a big part of it was just figuring out what my identity was called. Because for a lot of people, cause you don't need to know necessarily. Some people don't know. They're fine with a more nebulous term. They're fine with just saying, "Oh yeah, I'm queer. I'm genderqueer. I'm whichever more general term they like." But for me, finding the specific term agender felt I have to solve things. I have to solve what's happening. I have to understand what's going on. It's been a thing that I have had to do, especially with like stuff involving me, for a long time. And so when I finally heard that word, it's like it clicked into place. And I finally understood, and I saw the way people were talking about it, and I was like, that's me. And that, I think, was the most positive part for me, was just solving that. And whatever I do now to like feel more comfortable in the physical form, that's fine and I can work on that. But now I know, and I've known for many years now, because like I said, my friend is the one who helped me figure it out. I actually he helped me find it out, and I remember this moment very clearly. We were in his house, and it was just me and him. His parents were out. He was doing dishes, and I was sitting on the counter, and it was sunny, and I remember that. And I was just sort of kicking my feet, sitting on the counter, and not looking at him because I was trying to figure out how to say something. And I asked him, figured out that he was a guy. And that sort of, he just kept washing the dishes while he was telling me, and I just kept sitting on the counter, and we talked a little bit. And then later on, he ended up gifting me a box with a card that he had drawn, definitions for a bunch of different terms we had discussed. So transgender, non-binary, agender, and asexual were all in there. And then he also gifted me my first binder, because he had had a binder. So that was the first time that I started working on it, and that is like sort of my go-to positive memory with transitioning. Like everything else has been great, people respect me has been great and all that, but that moment really sticks with me.
That's a powerful moment. I'm glad you had it. So yeah, labels are definitely something I try and caution people at first, is to find what they're comfortable with first and then find a label that fits them instead of necessarily trying to fit a label. But when you can find one that fits you perfectly, that's can be very comforting. So I'm glad you were able to. Would anyone else like to take a shot at that question? In what way has transitioning made a positive change for you? No?
I feel like that's a question of where do you start? Oh, I remember, I think it was, I remember a friend of mine running up to me. This has been, I want to say maybe 5 months ago, basically saying, you know, I've never seen you this happy. And I remember, actually, when I was back home for the holidays, this has actually been fairly recent, my dad sitting me down and being like, huh, you know, basically told me the same thing. It's like, you know, you seem happy.
You could just
Which,
feel your energy.
well, the funny thing is, he actually explained, and apparently he never said anything to anyone about this, but apparently, he could tell I'd been unhappy for a very, very long time. So, mental health is definitely an improvement. Clarity of mind is also something I didn't expect. It was such a weight off of my shoulders. Still dealing with some of it, obviously, but, you know. But it was such a weight off of my shoulders that it was genuinely amazing to be able to wake up in the morning and be like, huh, that's me. I'm actually somewhat okay with this reflection. As opposed to, you know, just looking in the mirror, not really smiling, looking back or anything. But yeah. Yeah, it's night and day.
It's like taking a gray filter off your life a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
How about you? Would you like to answer that one?
Sure. I would say mainly it's just very like really euphoria inducing. Funny story is I used to, God, everyone's gonna think I'm a dork, but whatever. I used to run a little Tumblr blog, a fashion Tumblr blog with androgynous fashion, and I remember I was wearing like all dapper wear, kind of like how my avatar is right now, like all, dapperish, and that was like my sense of euphoria in the very beginning. And I was walking, and someone's like, "Oh, hey, that dapper man," and I was like, and I think like that really like awakened like a spark in me, and I was like, maybe I should, go on hormones and, really, go. I don't want to say like go forward, because like again, everyone's transition's different, right? But I was like, you know what, maybe I should go on T, even though in the beginning I was kind of afraid to, because um, I heard so many, I guess, negative things, but I was glad that I took the leap to start with my T injections. And it also, as funny as it sounds, like I know there's like this stereotype where they say like when you start T, like you kind of get stoic and cold, and with me it's kind of like the opposite. I actually feel more intensely now that I'm on T, in a sense of like, I feel like my synapses are firing. I feel like, I could experience a lot more vividly now. Kind of like how Shay mentioned, when you take the, like, when you have like this gray filter on everything, like you don't feel like a husk of a person anymore. You just feel like more in tuned with yourself, and I think that's pretty great.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing. All right. So with the positives, sometimes there's a little bit of negatives that come along with transitioning. Can you give an example of a difficult or unexpected situation you've encountered while transitioning and how you approached it? Does anyone feel comfortable answering that?
Oh, sure, I was muted. Well, I mean, like a lot of comings out. Mine wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't the worst. My parents were just pretty unresponsive to when I mentioned I thought I was transgender, and I grew up in a conservative household from a church that wasn't extremely anti-LGBT, but it had a lot of people who were very anti-LGBT. So it left a very big impact on my brain. My ideological upbringing pretty much worked against me, where I thought myself was evil. So all this mental health stuff that we've been talking about is very important, especially in the case of I've known other trans people with the issue of being brought up in a very forceful ideological upbringing who have the same type of thing. It's kind of like the creator, or God telling you you're bad, you're doing the wrong thing, you're not this. And I had to get over that. And as I previously mentioned, I had my partners, and I really suffered a lot with PTSD and post-traumatic stress disorder while I was dealing with my mental health. Really, it took me a very long time to get through that, but really, it just took me therapy. There's been a lot of things that have happened. It's been a long journey. Some things I'd be reluctant to share on stream. But yeah, really can be rough out there, but definitely look at yourself as a survivor. We typically do have it harder, so take a breath and seek medical help if you can, and just try and survive. It took me a while, and I almost didn't make it, so keep at it, keep going.
You're absolutely a survivor, and I'm so glad you're still around with us.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
So, mine kind of ties into a later question, but I'll discuss more about that then. But this one definitely belongs a bit in the trigger warning section. So, I'm part of my IRL Jobs Pride Committee. and I have been since I came out in 2016, 2017. And for the past 4 years, though 2022 doesn't technically count because they just took my one I wrote in 2020 and then reposted it for 2022 because I was out of town, but I've written our post every year for the Trans Day of Remembrance since 2020. That's been one of the important things that I've done is going to the site that compiles the names, going through, if they don't have age or anything like that, I go into the articles that they link to try to find out as much as possible to properly compile the list in numerical order. And I've done that 2020, 2021, and 2023. And it's hard every time because it's exhausting and it's overwhelming, and it's like the first one I wrote, I tried to maintain professionalism because I work there. The second one I did, I was more sharp, more angry, and they let that one go as well, no edits. And then the most recent one I did, I was just tired because I am tired. Like, it's exhausting, especially compiled, like looking at all these names every year. And for me, a big thing also is that I've talked about my age publicly. I'm 28 years old. I'm two I'm 2 years out of aging out of the trans statistic. Of the statistic. And the fact that that kind of on the internet at least makes me an old trans because I've almost aged out is a lot to deal with. And that especially hits me when I start going through all the names of those who didn't. It's hard.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I will say there are a lot of members in our community who are finally starting to beat the statistic, and I'm so glad to see that so many are starting to be able to share their stories and inspire people who come after us. Yeah, hopefully the number improves, continues to improve. Would either of you like to answer?
There are definitely some things I could share, but not things I would share on stream. But just there is. I deal with it less now because very androgynous and whatnot, very hard for people to figure out, which I guess I'm very lucky on for that. But I think for probably the first 3 or 4 months, yeah, I just remember keeping my head down. Yeah, there were more than a few moments where people were very, very hostile or very, very aggressive. It's not exactly the prettiest. That being said, I'm in a very conservative area. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. I think that's probably the most I can say on that because, yeah, anything else I can't really share here on stream.
Fair. And I will reiterate, if there's any questions you don't feel comfortable answering, we'll just move by it. Don't worry, don't feel compelled to answer if you're not comfortable. Would you like to take a shot at the answering?
Sure. I would say, like, interestingly, well, I don't know, interestingly enough, I had issues, I want to say, like, when I was socially transitioning and also when I was post socially transitioning. So before T and after T, I've had issues with some cis people. I've had issues with some trans people. Like again, things I probably can't share on stream. But, despite it all though, I mean, even though there have been dark points, dealing with those things, I still wouldn't trade it for the world, like you're still yourself at the end of the day. So
It's still worth it.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. All right. So we've touched on it a little bit in some of our answers already. Some people were very quick to accept, others might have taken some time. So our next question, has anyone's perspectives or opinions of you changed over time through your transition? How so?
Yeah. Yeah, they have. I was just answering preemptively because it's a line. But, what's it called? My parents eventually did come around. It took about, I don't know, I think it was 2 years before I saw them again. I moved out of state, pretty much as soon as I transitioned, with my partners. Jump ship, moved across the country, just kind of disappeared from everything. But eventually, 2 years later, we started talking again. Over the course of years, we talked a little bit, here and there. And finally, I mean, it's like, it's 10 years later. I'm going to hang out with them for my birthday tomorrow, which is the first time I've hung out with them in such a setting for like a long time, or at least my birthday setting. But yeah, my parents came around. There's been I didn't really keep around a lot of other people, to be honest, because I kept around some of the wrong people, and they just needed to go. I was, I was out of my mind. I didn't know what was going on, and I was just kind of waiting for them to catch on, waiting for them to be better, or to change their ways, or to see things in a different light. But sometimes that just doesn't happen. But I'm forever thankful that my relationship with my family has kind of like come back into play, and I hang out with them a little bit now. Because and I moved back. I moved back to the place 10 years. Moved back to the city I came from. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I have in my downline, but it's very valuable in my opinion.
I'm so glad your family came around. Did you say your birthday is that tomorrow?
It's actually Sunday, but we're celebrating it tomorrow.
Sunday. Happy birthday. I'm glad.
Thank you so much.
I'm
Oh, and I'm 33, and I forgot to say my pronouns are she, her. I apologize.
Thanks for sharing that. All right. Sarla, would you like to answer that? Has anyone come around?
Well, yes. Yes, I would like to answer the question. The start of the sentence is, well, like I said, a lot of my friend group is made up of queer people, and in fact, the the friend group that I'm the most active in right now, let's see, what are we up to? All but one of them is trans. It's like, and like people kept joining and then coming out, and then they'd bring another person, and then that person would join and then come out. And so it's turned into like a joke where it's like, oh, if you join the friend group, watch out. Watch out. But when it comes to like people coming around and everything like that, my family's trying. They're trying. They're trying my patience, but they're also trying to learn. It's both of those things. My dad doesn't quite get it. Though for him it's more, for him it's because we're both on the spectrum, and so we're on different sides of it. So like while I tend to over empathize, he doesn't quite understand as much about the empathizing part of it. So he just doesn't, he knows that this makes me happy, and he likes that this makes me happy. He has no comprehension of it other than that, but he knows that I'm happy, And that's something. He messes up the pronouns, but he tries to remember when I tell him. My mom tries as well, though my parents are both baby boomers, so they have a little bit of the lead. So he's like, well, "You're always gonna be our blah blah blah." I'm like, "Okay, but can you like rephrase that ever so slightly?" And she's like, "Oh, did I do something wrong?" I'm like, she's trying, but she doesn't get it at all. My grandmother has actually been incredibly supportive. I'm living with her right now, and she doesn't always get it either, but she's been really supportive. She tries to get my pronouns right. She tries to get my pronouns right with my aunt and uncle. She helped me start telling my baby cousins about my pronouns, which was really interesting to me, because the kids, oh my god, the kids, wow, they're just on it. They're just like sometimes my aunt will be talking to my grandmother over Zoom, and my grandmother will just hear, "Their pronouns are they," from like shouted across the room. They don't even realize that they were talking about me at all. And it's just, that's been really sweet. And the kids sort of get it. They also kind of don't get some things because they're kids and it's adorable. Like, this isn't necessarily about being trans, but about being queer. They were like, "Oh, I want a husband when I get older. What do you want a husband?" I'm like, "No, not really." And they're like, "You don't want a husband?" I'm like, "No, I don't really like men." And without missing a beat, kid goes, "Oh, you don't love daddy?" Thinking that I meant I don't like men, full stop. And it was one of the like sweetest things. It's like one of the sweetest misunderstandings. She was just like, she was about to go ride or die for her dad, dude. She was like, "What do you mean?" And so like the kids have been incredibly supportive. My parents are trying, my grandmother's doing her best, and my friend group is supportive because we're like, all of us are trans, so we get it. And I've actually been trying out Rory initially with them to figure out if it's the name I want to use, and I've been enjoying it so far.
I'm glad you have their support, even if it takes them a little bit to come around. Maybe I'll interject with my own story very quickly. I know it's not about me, this panel, but during the moonlight, I don't know if anyone was there, but I shared a story about my mother. When I came out to her, I was a sobbing mess. And I told her, like, I think I'm trans. And she was like, no matter what, I'll always support and love you. And she looked at me and was like, what does trans mean? So that was a shock. But she was super supportive. She wanted to throw a coming out party for me. I had to talk her out of it. It was terrifying. I was also lucky to have the support of my family. But the point is, it took them a couple years to start getting my pronouns and my name right all the time. It's very important, I think, to be a little bit patient with people who have known you for a very long time. Their intent is very important. Be a little forgiving if they slip up. It's all right to correct them, of course, but be a bit patient with that. And then with kids, the kids in the family, I find they are magic. They're wonderful. They're usually the quickest ones to come around. When I came out to my nephew years ago, he's torn up. He was a mess. He was very upset that I was changing until he found out that I would still play the same games with him. And he was like, oh, that's okay. Suddenly he didn't care anymore. That was fine. He was worried that I wouldn't play the same boy games with him anymore. That sort of stuff. That was his only concern. So, yeah, family can be great. They can be fun. Not all the time, but the important part is we be patient with the people who are trying in our lives. Yeah. Would anyone else like to answer that question? Has anyone's perceptions changed of you over time through your transition, for better or worse?
I guess I could use my parents as an example for this one because it seems like a pretty good one. So my folks' response was originally, I don't completely understand. I don't completely agree. enough to the point that I'm like, I'm just not going to talk to you guys for a few days. So, but what's weird is we went from that to at Christmas, my dad basically saying, all right, they're my daughter. If you have a problem with it, get out. So I'll give him a pat on the back for that. I love my mom. She really does try. Because she'll say she, then she'll say he, then she'll say he, and she'll flip back and forth real quick, correcting herself every time. I'm just like, I know you're trying. You'll get it. You'll get it in time. I have faith. Oh.
That's one of my
love
favorite things is when they like flip through the pronouns just like really quickly. I've been hit with the she, he, they, one of them, one of them. You come here.
You.
You here now.
I think my favorite one to my dad saying was, he's my daughter. I'm like, okay, Dad, think this through really quick. The sentence doesn't make sense. Oh, no, I love them both. Yeah, I'm actually very happy with how that's gone.
I love that. Thank you for telling.
Yeah, really, the entire extended family as well has also been pretty okay with it. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Do you have a story to share?
Sure. It was kind of funny with me because a little bit about me. I have an elder brother who is probably about I'm gonna say like 20 years older than me. He's my dad's son through a previous marriage. And he's my older brother, and he actually like helped me feel comfortable enough to come out to our dad. And here I am like sweating bullets, like thinking like, oh crap, I'm gonna come out to my dad, who put me on this pedestal and is like, oh, you're my beautiful baby girl, blah blah. And I'm like, oh great, now I'm just gonna like shatter this poor man's feelings. So the irony is that my brother helps me come out to my dad, and he took it pretty well. He actually, so I was very worried about coming out to my dad, who believe it or not is from the silent generation. So yeah, he's pretty old, hence why I was so worked up and so nervous about coming out to him. But he actually took it a lot better than my mom, surprisingly. So, my mom was a bit unhappy, but like I said, she eventually like came around. So, and I think that's like kind of like wraps in with like people's and perceptions of you. Like sometimes people can surprise you, really, and that's kind of like the unexpected thing when you transition. Some people can surprise you in a bad way. Sometimes people could surprise you in a good way too. So
Absolutely. It's interesting to see who comes around and who doesn't. um. So, about our support systems, can you share how support systems have impacted your transition, such as your family, friends, or the community?
Oh, some of my favorite like memories are actually from like my first like trans group, which is actually with Tizzy. I met Tizzy at Trans Pride, like 2015, 2016, and everybody pretty much we would go party at Tizzy's because Tizzy is of course wonderful and awesome. So we would hang out. We would have the. Oh yes, yeah, it was wonderful. I still reflect on how. Oh, thank you, sweet. But yeah, it was absolutely like if I could if there was a time I could go back to, it would probably be like that little space, because it felt like it feels like it now, like it felt like what VR chat feels like now, just a bunch of trans girls and people who were cool with us just hanging out, doing things, doing the stuff. We hang out at the Oxwood Inn, which was like a popular trans hangout, and we'd go dancing, partying. it was magical, and it was definitely some of the best times of my life. And now, like, you know, we can just come online and here's Trans Academy. I just wander around sometimes. I'll come into Trans Academy and just be like, oh, this is nice. This feels like, you know, happy things. I see all the happy trans people, and it makes me partially emotional. And I just like, you know, I'll be here for 2 minutes, then I'll, you know, peace out, because it just, I don't know, it uplifts me to see all this. It really is. It's amazing. It's what it, like, because like I forget what year. I might have been 2016, but those trans prides were like coming into Trans Academy. You would walk there, a bunch of trans people. I'd never seen so many trans people in one place, and it was just amazing. Like, I was like, wow, all these people like me, all these people doing all these things. That person's like me, that person's like me. We can have relations. Like, it was mind-boggling. I never thought I'd have a sense of community or friendship or anything like that that could stem in that way. And it was amazing. I couldn't put it in any other words. The community has been great. Its friends have been amazing. My partners have been completely supportive. You know, it's been a very large blessing for me to have the people I've run into in my life. I've run into very magnificent people. I'm in my polyamorous partners. Right now I'm living with a cis man, a non-binary, she, they, and a trans man. And yeah, a little queer household. And eventually me and my trans man partner are going to move into a place of our own for more room. And it's been a life. I mean, you never want, I mean, you could make trans your identity, but eventually trans is just within you, and you are a product of what you've done. And it's, I don't know, it's making me emotional just talking about it, but it's been great. I don't know. Everyone I've met has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry. My support system has been incredibly helpful for me, in more ways than one. Especially, and I don't know if he's here right now, but especially Cujo. He is he is so important to me, and he's always been the one who's like been supportive of me the whole way through. Like, the second I started talking about wanting to maybe try out a different name, he's like, "What's the name? Tell me. We're gonna do it." Like, and even with like normal stuff, like, "Hey, I'm passionate about this thing. Do it. We're gonna do it. Okay, what is it? What are we learning? What are we learning?" And so he's always been a really incredible and important part of my support system. I've also, like I said, I have that friend group that I'm in, and semi recently my WoW guild, because I've been playing WoW since I was 13, so it's been a little bit. It's been what some might call a little bit of time. And unfortunately my guild ended up sort of falling apart during the pandemic kind of thing. But recently I actually just found a new guild to join that is incredibly queer friendly and is in fact has a lot of trans individuals in it. And while I'm still getting used to them and still getting to know them, because like I said, my initial guild I've known since I was a teenager, so it's been a little while. I knew them for a while. But already in the couple raid nights that I've had with the new guild, it's been incredibly nice to just be around other trans people in such a casual space. Because like, I get nervous when I'm like in big groups of people and stuff like that, and I even still get nervous during raid night when there's like maximum of 15 of us in one voice call. But knowing that it is kind of a safe place I've like started making a couple more jokes, which, because I sound like this, I did end up getting approached by one of the officers being like, I just want to make sure, are you an adult? And I'm like, I have been an adult for a decade, but thank you for asking. And it's just like, having that kind of environment has just been really, really nice to be able to have that environment in like a casual space as well that I just sort of dabble in, because I didn't really have that before.
It's great to have groups like that to help break the ice and get used to talking with larger groups of people at once. I also started out in MMOs with nice guilds who were supportive before I met Tizzy and went off to Second Life and met some other amazing people who supported me. So it's definitely valid. Online groups are definitely real friends as well. I'm glad you found that community and you still found another one. How about you?
Oh wow. Okay. So if we want to go back to like earliest like quote unquote support groups, it's gonna be a little strange. I was never massively into like MMOs and all that, but I am a software engineer and I've been a programmer since I was like 14, right? So I was very actively involved in like software development, especially large open source projects. And of course, looking back, these people had no idea how old I was, and they had no idea that I was assigned male at birth, but I just like, okay, I'm just gonna... So I would always present as, I always present as feminine, and people would always, treat me as such, and a few of them I would have considered friends and everything at that point. Got more into the online spaces and whatnot more during COVID and everything, like those whole friend groups and everything. And yeah, many of them have been incredibly supportive. In fact, two of the groups I'm in, I look at them, I'm like, I think it's going to be harder to find a straight cis person in this group than it will be to find a queer person. Amazing support network, and a lot of friends who came out of the woodwork and whatnot as well to, support me, and a few even going so far as to actually call me and be like, "Oh yeah, proud of you." I'm like, "Well, thanks." Yeah, it's amazing. Couldn't have asked for a better support network.
I love that. So you're saying there's a lot of programming socks in your community?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will also say it was very funny because I'm an engineer for a living. So all the work and everything I did during my teens and like under that handle and everything, I was like, oh, I'm actually able to talk about this now. Okay, so I built all of this. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Definitely among friends.
All I'm going to say is, if you've run Linux at any point, there's a very high chance you've used something I wrote.
So cool. It goes over my head. I'm impressed. Essek, do you have anything you would like to add?
Mainly, so I mean, I've been pretty lucky to where my friends groups have always been very supportive. I would say like my first real, like, God, this is gonna sound dorky. My first real support group when I like came out to myself like in the beginning, and I'm like, oh, I'm genderqueer, was I was in community college and in this really small dinky town, and we actually, I'm not exaggerating, there was like 5 of us, and it was another trans woman, her partner, me, I was the only trans mask person, and like 3 other people who just were cis, and one of them actually came out as non-binary. So it was like the 5 of us, and surprisingly we were able to have our first little pride group in the school's history. So that was neat. But surprisingly, like, we were expecting like a lot of pushback, but they were just like, "Oh, you want to do like a little pride club here? Yeah, that's totally fine." And I was like, "Wow, I was expecting more backlash here, like, kind of thing." But that was like my first like real support group. And then I went off into college and I joined UCF, and they also had like in person and what's called like Pride Commons. I was done through the Student Government Association, and I was also a part of that. But kind of a little bit of, what kind of, besides my, personal friend group that was supportive as well. So it's very interesting.
I love that. I love that you were able to get stuff going at your school and kick it off. That's amazing. If you can't find support, you can make some.
Exactly.
Sometimes people are just waiting to have someone to stand up first.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, so up next, what personal milestones or achievements during your transition are you particularly proud of? I know some of us have been transitioning longer than others. Is there anything you've done, though, that makes you really proud?
What's it called? I'd say one of my personal achievements is dysphoria is a bitch, sometimes it gets me. But I look into the mirror and I see that I'm okay with what I like, or what I am. I like what I see, and I'm at least okay with it. It might not be perfect, but I'm able to feel in my body rather than displaced from my body. And that, for me, is a really big milestone I was able to achieve, probably really late. Like, it's hard for me to even mark it because it's been a while. It's been a long time. I mean, it's been about 10 years. Maybe my 8th year in, and then right after I got top surgery, I felt good before the top surgery, and I felt like I could look at myself, and it was great. It was fine, and I liked everything that I saw, kind of. But dysphoria kind of championed me. I was trying to get top surgery since I moved to California, which was in about 2014. I ended up getting it only in 2022. I was lined up for FFS, but unfortunately I had to bail in California because rent was crazy. And but overall, it's been a complete win, I think. Taking home the W, as far as I'm concerned, and it's embodying myself over the years gradually. It's definitely not instant. It's not instantaneous. You see progress. You see things that you like, and eventually you're just there. You're just, this is me. There's a popular meme that I saw going around a few years ago where it was a trans girl starting off 6 months into transition, or 2 months into transition, saying, "I'm transitioning. This is going to be great." 6 months, she is a bit beaten down, a bit scared. A year in, she is fighting it. She's going to the doctor, and then just skip the 2 years. She is what would you say? Giving a gesture and living her life the way that she should be. It's I don't know. I feel a victory in my transition. I feel that I've done it. Not that it ever stops, but I've made it to the point where I never thought I would make it before. I didn't think I'd live this far, but wow, I made it. It's great.
I love that. Yeah, transitioning is definitely a journey. It's an ongoing process. It could take a while with its ups and downs, like you said. But I'm glad that you're able to finally look at yourself and be like, I'm proud of this. That is an accomplishment. Good for you.
One of my big accomplishments, I think, was actually coming out at work.
Mhm.
Hold on. My throat is dry, and I am out of soda, and the soda is downstairs, and I can't leave right now. So my
no.
throat's a little mad at me. But was coming out at work, which objectively, looking at it now, was hilarious. Like, everything leading up to it, objectively, is extremely funny. So, like, first, I noticed that someone on, like, the internal intranet suddenly was no longer going by full name, was going by a letter, and that letter was being used instead of any pronouns. So I immediately knew what was going on. Like, just from seeing that, I immediately knew. And so I started looking at how my coworkers were reacting to that and, like, listening to how they were reacting to that. And then I was going to come out, but then my coworker's son came out to her, and so she was, like, excitedly telling everyone. And so, like, she was super excited and super, like, hyped and everything. And so I kind of let that ride for a little bit to see how that happened. I eventually schedule a meeting with my boss and my department manager, essentially. Branch manager. I work in a library system. And so with my boss and my branch manager, and they have no idea why I'm talking to them. They tell me later they thought I was quitting. They thought I was gonna be like, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I'm leaving. Goodbye. But no, I pull them aside. I tell them, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, yes. And then later, I find out when I went home, I came out as trans at work on National Coming Out Day, and I didn't even know that it was National Coming Out Day.
Amazing.
I genuinely didn't know that was a thing until after I got home. And it was just like, I feel like I can't stumble into the perfect, like, trans moment other than that. Like, I feel like I peaked there. And, like, anything else now is a bonus. What is my hand doing? There we go. But yeah, that I think that is probably my main moment I think of, besides the moment from the beginning that I shared, is just coming out at work on National Coming Out Day without knowing it was National Coming Out Day, and scaring my boss and my branch manager because they thought I was gonna quit. Not because of anything happening. They're just like, you're pulling us aside. You want to talk to us, like, 2-on-1. Oh God, what happened?
You went in there and you told them, you gotta take my name off the system. And they're like,
oh God, that would have been worse. No, at work, I still go by my birth name just because I'm still trying out names. But
fair.
But it's also funny because at work, there's someone else whose name is spelled exactly like me, but pronounced differently. So no one calls me the right name anyway. So it's just like, at work, technically I'm my birth name. No one calls me that. No one knows that. No one knows. Because they all think I'm someone else. It's really funny.
Good. You can put the blame on them.
You can't be dead named if they don't know how to pronounce your name.
You can just shift all the blame onto them. All right. Thank you for answering that. That's fantastic.
I'm chuckling right now because when I came out at work, my boss thought I was quitting as well. And it also had followed, like, a long list of, like, technical issues and problems and everything. So she thought it was related to that. So she's like, "Oh, there's definitely reason for them to quit." Wait. Oh, you're not quitting. You're just trans. Okay, good. I'm like, okay, cool. Moving on.
What a nice way.
It breaks a collection for bosses of, like, they're not quitting. They're just trans.
It seems like a good way to, like, ease them into it, though. Like, you just you scare them a bit, and then you're like, no, it's not that big a deal. I'm just changing I'm just
Oh,
transitioning.
well, it was also very funny. Like literally, like 5 minutes later, she's like, "Okay, let's talk about that stuff you need to work on this week." I'm like, "Okay, sure, sounds good."
Business as usual.
Carry on the rest of the conversation. Yeah.
It's nice to know nothing
Oh.
changes.
Oh. Oh yeah, milestones. Right. Sorry, I couldn't help but chuckle at that. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfectly
Because same
fine.
experience. Milestone for me, I guess, would probably be when I was I guess it was when I was traveling across like a few states with my partner at the time, and I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, somebody's going to call me the wrong thing. Someone's going to say him. Somebody's going to. I just went the entire day, and not a single person said him. Everyone's like, ma'am, her, how are you today? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to count that as a win. Yeah.
That's huge. That's a victory.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about you, Esek? Any milestones or achievements that you're proud of during your transition?
Well, I do have a couple. I was able to legally change my name thanks to going to to the university that I went to, and it was actually a service that they did for free for the students, and I had no idea. I was like really elated about that. And then thanks to the community that I was a part of, I lived in Orlando at the time while I was in college, and I was able to go on hormones as well, thanks to the community. And I don't know, I just get like pretty like emotional because I think about it like earlier, like I would say in like 2013, I was really struggling. I really thought that I was, just a super androgynous cis woman. And I'm just like, man, like I thought I was going to have to be this way for the rest of my life. And now it's like I did a complete, like, 360. Like, I am the guy. I have a boyfriend now who is a gay man because, sometimes trans people get told like, oh, you're not going to have the partner that you really want because of X, Y, and Z and all kinds of other nonsense. But I'm living my life as a gay man, and that's something to be proud of. So, yeah.
Love that. That's definitely an accomplishment. All right. All right, so moving on from that. Based on your journey and what you know now, what advice would you give others or your past self who are just starting their transition?
Just give yourself some time to forget that you're trans, is one of the most impactful pieces of advice I was given in my early stages of transitioning. Is give yourself a break, because it's gonna, like, especially, for me, in my experience, on my mind all the time, this is my existence, I'm living in the wrong body, oh my goodness, shut off these dysphoria alarms. If you're able to just give yourself, it might even just be an hour. It might be an hour where you're just do something that you like, you enjoy, forget that you're trans, just be who you are. Step into whatever body you have, because it's going to be what you want it to be. You're working on yourself. It just takes time. And you just need to release yourself from that stress for whatever amount of time you can. That's helped me an extreme amount, just to be who I am. And as well as definitely therapy, definitely seek out community. I didn't seek out community initially. I didn't know where it was. I remember distinctly in my early days before I moved to California, before I started medically transitioning, I went to a trans meetup that was maybe only 10 people in a circle just trying to figure out what to do with the trans community in the city. And that was my first time seeing older trans people. And the I mean, one of the most inspirational things I saw was an older trans person, and it was, I don't know, amazing. Just find what you need to find and make sure you're nice to yourself. Give yourself time. It's a journey. Breathe. You're going to get there, and it's really going to take however long it takes. You just have to hold on.
I 100% agree with that. Myself included, when I just started my transition, I was compulsive and obsessed with transition. It was the main topic of my life. It was everything. I was trying to figure out how I could min-max everything and get the most out of it. And it was
exactly min-maxing.
It was constantly on my mind, and it got exhausting.
Absolutely.
It got very exhausting. So definitely take a break, relax, like Clint said. It's a journey. It could take a while. And alluded to what you said earlier with that story, how it was that girl who had different stages where she jumped from like to 2 years. After a while, after transitioning for so many years, it becomes a little bit less prominent in your life. It becomes almost like a footnote. It's not your whole life. Some people still find value in community as well, and that's totally valid. But there's more to it than that, and yeah, make sure you enjoy your life too, and don't worry over trying to, again, min-max.
Yeah, you aren't just trans. You are you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Zyla?
Any trans masks in the audience? I am staring directly into your eyes. Yes, I am making eye contact with you. I am lightly grabbing you by the shoulders, and I am shaking you. And I am saying, do not get cheap binders. Any of you in Twitch chat, trans masks, do not use cheap, shitty, garbage, terrible binders. They're terrible and they're bad. Do not use them, because if you bind incorrectly, you will cause physical damage to your body. And if you want to get top surgery later, you can't. If you screw up your body enough, you cannot do it. Do not use the cheap binders with the little clasps that were like everywhere like 8 years ago. Don't do it. Do not use those. Do not ace bandage. Do not overbind. Do not bind for too long. You have to. I know how we feel, right? I know how we feel about the body, especially about this section of the body. But we have to treat this section of the body nicely, or we can't deal with the problem later if we want to deal with the problem later. Also, even if you don't want to get surgery, if you bind incorrectly, you can hurt your ribs. You can damage your ribs. You can malform your rib cage. It's hard to do. You have to do things badly and incorrectly for a long period of time, but don't do it. Like, don't even do it for the smaller period of time. I used those binders because that's what we had, because we were desperate and we were lonely and we were sad and we didn't know any better, and they were $5 on Amazon. And now, and don't do it. Don't do it. There are safe ways to go about it. If you need to bind, at least in some way, try a sports bra if you can't afford a full binder. If your binder does not fit correctly, do not wear it. Even if your binder does fit correctly, remember to take breaks, because your body needs breaks. You need break days. You need to not wear it for too many hours. People are not lying to you when they say this. It's not that they don't understand how it feels, because trust me, I understand how it feels. It's that you have to take care of your body. No matter how mad we are at the body, it's not the body's fault that we are the way we are, and we have to treat it with respect, because if we don't treat the body with respect, we won't have the body. and that's kind of important for being alive. So the main thing, and I know I'm harping on this, but the main thing is if you are going to bind appropriately, bind safely, bind responsibly. Take care of yourself. Remember to hydrate. Remember you're supposed to be able to breathe. It's supposed to be snug, not difficult to breathe. Do not exercise in your binder. I don't care how much you think that you have to, you will regret it every time, and then every time you'll still do it, and then you'll wonder why you hate exercise and why breathing sucks. So take care of the body, no matter how mad we are at the body, because it's not the body's fault that we are the way we are. But that
That's
got
very
kind of
important.
aggressive, I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a very important PSA and needs to be repeated because I keep hearing stories. I know someone who
Yep.
cracked their rib doing that. And also, I might hijack your answer slightly to also warn people assign male at birth. Also, if you're gonna wear something really tight, like a nice tight outfit, a dress or something, and you're gonna be tucking stuff away, that also you need to take a break with that as well. You can also go overboard with that. So yeah, anything that you're restricting, you have to give it a break as well and make sure you do it properly. Thank you. That was a very important message. I appreciate you sharing that. All right, how about you?
Well, that was one of the things I was going to say, but you got me on that one.
I
I guess
apologize.
no, you're fine. Okay, wow. This isn't even trans-specific, but just if you are presenting feminine or female in any capacity, whether you're trans-femme or non-binary, remember to take your makeup off when you go to bed. You really don't want to deal with that afterwards.
I feel called out.
I'm very
so
called out
guilty.
right now. I
You
have
only
makeup on
get
in the
foundation
headset.
in your- You only get foundation in your eye several times before you start paying attention to that. I
Man,
can't
I'm still
even
trying to learn that
imagine if you
lesson.
also do like mascara. Oh god. Oh
Mhm.
no. Oh no.
I forgot to remove mine, and during the thing, some sweat dripped into my eye and it burned because the foundation was in it.
And also, of
Thank you.
course,
That's very important.
cause a bunch of acne and stuff. So please continue.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and also learn how to actually properly apply makeup because, wow, you can make it look really bad really easily. Like, seriously,
Oh,
ask
yeah.
someone, look up guides, talk to people. Yeah, there's some older photos of me I look at, I'm like, why did I even think this was okay? Even in a little bit, why did I think this was okay? Wow, yeah, I don't have too many other things to add beyond that. Just that one
Sure.
detail because I distinctly remember repeatedly jamming a razor trying to shave because the makeup was still on.
Yeah, it could totally ruin your skin. It could dry it out.
Yeah.
It can cause skin infections, pimples,
Mhm.
acne, you name it. It's not good.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of
I guess.
chemicals. You aren't supposed to keep those on all the time. You're gonna say
Yeah,
something?
I guess one more thing. Laser, if you can afford it. Really, really nice. Really, really helpful for the facial hair and dysphoria from that. Genuinely night and day.
Depending on your skin tone and your
True.
hair tone as well, it effective
Well,
varies.
if it works for you. I mean,
Right.
you know.
If that fails, like electrolysis, which is a lot more expensive but more effective for more ranges of skin and hair color.
Yes, and I think also slightly more painful, but yes.
Yeah. Definitely a little more painful, but again, might be worth it for some if that's the route you feel you need to go. And then yeah, makeup, like you touched on as well. It could take a while to learn. Stick with it. It's a skill. It's especially eyeliner. That's the hardest thing I find is learning to do those lines even and yeah. Stick with it. Be patient. Yeah, that's it. Do you have any advice?
Oh yeah. So piggybacking off of what was said about binders, do not sleep in your binder. That I actually unfortunately know of somebody that did that. Yeah, that is not pretty at all. And also touching up on not only, I would say, be sure not only just to be kind to yourself, but, be sure to.
Oh,
Did we lose him?
Protect your
Oh, there's
oh,
emotional.
movement.
and they're
Oh,
gone.
Might be lagging out because someone activated the fireworks display.
Hmm.
I heard the fireworks sound and I was like, is someone setting off fireworks in my neighborhood in real life?
I thought that
What's
was.
happening right now?
I thought that was going on. What was going on here as well?
No, it's
That's
like
so
up in the
funny.
skybox.
Yeah, they're over there.
Well, we'll move on. Maybe
for
one
us,
of our staff members could go check that out. um. I guess we'll move on to the next question. We can round back to Essek if they get back in time. So the final question I have here, do you have any opportunities to educate and advocate for transgender issues in your daily life? If so, could you share some examples?
This one, I mostly work from home. I don't go outside. The most I've done is over my years. I've streamed some. I've done those things, and I've gone about my ways on the internet. And I don't know, just being open with who I am and who I intend to be. I've noticed people, asking questions. I've noticed eggs cracking. Along my way, I've cracked multiple eggs by accident, just by being present. So mostly, passively, when I go off on some tangent about trans rights or trans health or trans whatever to my cis friends or to random people I'm around. That's really as far as I get. Though I don't shy away from it, obviously, but it's not it's unfortunately not an opportunity I get to have that often.
Aside from the academy, of course.
Besides from the academy, I made videos for the academy on the YouTube and the TikTok. And I hide in the little dark editing room. Yeah, okay, it counts.
And
all right, got it. Got some advocacy.
For those unfamiliar with the term egg kraken, it's a very common term in our community, where people first discover and accept that they're trans. They're cracking that eggshell. They're just being born. They're finally hatching. So yeah. How about you, Silo?
So I am now also part of Trans Academy. I am also on the media team. I'm one of the people who helps broadcast some of the events onto the Twitch channel. Hi. I also do my own streaming that I do, and I talk about being trans over there. I answer questions when people have them. But my main advocacy that I do is actually at my real life job. So, like I mentioned, I work at a library, and that library has a pride committee and has had a pride committee for, let me do some simple math, which I am terrible at. Over 25 years they've had the committee for. I have not been there for 25 years, obviously, but I've been there since 2017, and I've been part of it since then, and I've gone to outreach, I've gone to our local pride events, I've walked in our local pride parade, I've done outreach at those events, I've told people about what our libraries offer, about different events that we have going on. Like I said, I mentioned I write the Transgender Day of Remembrance post that we post every year in November. Back when I worked at a branch, every year I would make the display for Pride Month and for Transgender Remembrance Day. I would make the display at my branch for that every year. And I actually wrote an article for the local paper at one point, talking about coming out at work and being trans at work and all that sort of stuff. So, I do a lot of advocacy in that way. And I actually, had a meeting with my boss today. He was like, "Is anything going on? Anything that you're happy about or excited?" And I was like, "Well, I'm now volunteering with this charity." And she was super excited that I was so excited. And she was really happy because she knows that it's important to have that kind of representation. And she was happy that I can do it in a way that makes me feel comfortable as well. So that's sort of what I do with advocacy. Is I work with my workplace. I make posts, I made displays. I basically had control of the major document that had all the different pride flag bookmarks that we would then, oh my god, it was a whole thing. We would make them, and each sheet would make 10 bookmarks, and then we had to align our logo on the back so that it would have our branding on it, and then we would have to print them out. But if you didn't print them out in the right way, then they would be misaligned. So you had to print them out on a specific printer with a specific layout via the bypass tray so you could do the cardstock. And then we had to laminate them by hand and then hand cut them with a guillotine paper cutter. And I only hurt myself on the guillotine paper cutter once in all the years that I was doing it, which is honestly impressive. But like, we would do all of that, and I would sort of be the one that people would be like, "Hey, we need this flag added. We need this flag added. We need this flag added." The InDesign document got so long because each page was its own flag, and yeah. So I've done a lot of work with the Pride Committee, and I talk about it on my Twitch stream about being trans and stuff. And I do this now. And this is a really big deal to me. And I didn't realize how big of a deal it was when I was joining it. Because when I initially joined the Academy, I had gone a couple times to Moonlit, but I didn't know that it was such a big group. I saw the call to arms for help with like broadcasting, and I was like, I've been doing that for a while. I could probably help out. And then I joined, and I'm like, oh, this is like a thing. This is like an actual charity with like that. This is like a big deal. Oh, okay. I thought it was just being silly on the internet.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I think you're doing an amazing job so far.
Thank you.
We're glad
I
to
love
have
that
you.
I have this opportunity because doing this kind of outreach has always been really important to me.
I love it. It kind of helps us grow a little bit too to help others. How about for yourself?
Oh wow. Okay. So, for me, most of it is through my work. I'm an engineering lead at work, and the team I work on designs a lot of the tooling and especially the debugging and analytics tools that are used by the engineers to actually build the product. So here we're like, here's what you need to actually program anything here. And as a result, I've gotten to interact with most of the engineers across multiple teams and multiple products, and have really gotten to kind of really surprised a few people. It's kind of one of those, it's like, oh wait, you're okay, good to know. It was also interesting because I remember whenever they first changed my email over at work, I sent off a email which was saying, okay, we have these new features available. And then I also put a single note at the bottom that said, by the way, yes, I changed my name, I'm transgender.
You're a new feature. That's amazing.
Well, what was funny is apparently a bunch of people read it, and a non-trivial number actually bothered to read the entire email. And I'm like, well, that's unexpected. You actually read the entire email. I'm impressed.
That's how you get them. That's how you know who's paying attention. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's been fun. It's very yeah, it's very interesting. It's definitely impacted more on a few people's views in the company I work at. So
I love it. A lot of opportunities to advocate in the workplace. I noticed that for me as well in my previous role as a supervisor at my company. I noticed I was getting a lot of um, new transitioners being placed on my team by my management. After a while, it became a trend, and I'm like, "What's going on?" But
ah,
it was fantastic to be able to mentor them as they transition, especially in the workplace where it can be intimidating. So workplace advocacy, I definitely approve. So Essek, welcome back. We'll loop back to the previous question for you as well, but
Oh
we'll
my
just get
gosh.
this one if you want to. If you don't, we don't
It's
have to.
okay.
But to begin for at first, we'll finish this one up. Do you have any opportunities to educate and advocate for transgender issues in your daily life? If so, could you share some?
I'm gonna say, um, unfortunately, like, not really, or at least, like, not anymore.
Mhm.
Again, like, when I was active in, well, now I'm in, graduate school, so ironically, like, everyone's very queer and, very, like, there's a couple of queer people in my cohort in grad school, so and it's more, career-based. But when I was in undergrad, I had a huge opportunity to, educate the fellow students and talk about LGBT issues. Not so much anymore.
Mm,
But coming here to Moonlit has certainly helped because I'm also a part of the Transmask, the Transmask team as well, or the Transmask community there here, and we do Transmask groups, and it's great because I get to like get back into it and give back to other trans people, and help them, advocate for themselves and, validate them as well. So,
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. And to loop back to our previous question with you, if you would
oh.
like to answer it.
Sure, sure.
So based on your journey and what you know now, what advice would you give others or your past self who are just starting their transition?
Oh, well, I think like I mentioned, like, don't sleep in blind and in a binder. That's important. And
Yeah.
also, just essentially like learn to be kind to yourself. Like, transitioning is
Mm.
hard, and it's easy to really, really get into a rut. So, be sure to take care of your not only your mental health and your physical health, but also your emotional health as well. So, I mean, lots of stuff can happen. Yeah, I would say like take care of your emotional health as well.
Okay. Thanks for that good advice. So that was actually our last question. We have about 15 or so roughly minutes left on schedule. So I would like to open the floor to any of you if you have any last minute closing remarks or advice or anything you want to share. If not, that's perfectly fine as well.
Try and take care of each other. And also, just as a note, just because somebody is trans, this goes with keeping yourself and your own social circle safe. Just because somebody is trans doesn't mean they're automatically going to be somebody you're able to connect with. It's always good to support the transgender community. It's always good to support other trans people, though. You might have problems with certain individuals. Certain individuals still may act up. Just being trans doesn't excuse bad behavior sometimes. So I know in my early stages, I was giving people who were also in their early stages more of a oh, they're going through something or something's hitting them a bit too hard. But really, a lot of my history comes from not taking care of my own social circle in that way in the early days, and then growing it. But really, just take care of yourself. If it doesn't feel good, it probably isn't good. So just make sure that you are paying attention to how you feel. Don't let anybody put you down for how you're transitioning, because again, like we've been reiterating, it's a journey. It's all different. It's really going to be the rest of your life you're going to be trans. I mean, it's just it. You're just trans. That's it. You know, nothing else. Like, hey there, I'm trans. And eventually that's just how it's going to feel. You know, it's just going to be in the back of your mind. You're going to be able to wake up, say, hey, my name is, and here's a new day. And you won't necessarily think about your transition. You'll take your hormones, you won't even think about it, and you'll live your life.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Don't
Anyone else?
let anyone tell you that you're not trans enough. That was an issue that I dealt with a little bit. Not that anyone was specifically telling you, like, to my face, but I didn't know if I was trans enough because I didn't want to take tea. I didn't want to, like, do any of that kind of stuff. Like, I didn't want to start those hormones. And for a while, now I'm gonna sound like the dork. I was on Tumblr when I started figuring out my identity. Which anyone who was on Tumblr within the past 10 years,
Oh no.
mistake. But like there was a lot of infighting at the time because everyone on that website was, for lack of a better phrase, a young queer and didn't know any better, and there was a lot of infighting and there was a lot of misunderstanding as well about like, oh, you have to feel miserable all the time or you're not a real trans, and it's like that's not, bro, like I have to pay taxes. Like I don't have time to argue about that. Like
So funny.
I don't have, like, it doesn't, if it does, you know what I mean though? Like, there's no point in infighting. We have other shit to deal with. Like, I have to pay my taxes. I don't care if this person is identifying as trans wrong. What do you even mean? Who are you? Are you the gender police? What does this mean? Or like, because someone uses someone uses neopronouns or xenopronouns. Like, okay, what does that have to do with you though? Like, maybe you don't understand someone's identity. Maybe someone doesn't understand yours. You know what you can do? You can say, okay, and you can log off and you can walk away. Like, we don't have to fight. People don't have to prove that they suffer enough to qualify for this quantifier. We need to stop saying that suffering is an important part of the quantifier to diagnose yourself as trans, because it just makes people miserable. It does not matter if you are miserable or not. What matters is when you identify and when you figure out how you identify, are you happy? That's what's important.
I totally agree with that. The goal is finding some gender euphoria, not dysphoria. I agree with everything you said except the taxes. I don't know anything about taxes, but yeah. How about you? Do you have anything you want to share? Any closing?
Yeah, I guess. So I guess the best advice I can give is listen to yourself a little bit. Like if you're asking yourself and you're trying to convince yourself you're not back and forth for days, weeks, and months, just step back and like just listen. You know, don't bury things away. Don't say I'll deal with this later, because it will come back. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything, but you know.
No, not at
totally
all.
speaking from experience.
All right, Esik, any closing remarks? Anything at all you feel like you'd like to share?
I would just say, like, most importantly of all, like, just um, enjoy the journey. You only
Yeah.
really have one life, and it can be a little bit of a downer sometimes because some of us live in parts of the country where they're less welcoming than others, but you know, maybe you could even find some time, some quiet time during the day to, enjoy what you have and just, the day will come, just hold on.
I love that. Thank you so much. So, I guess I'll give a little as well. My advice would be to remember to be kind and patient with others and yourself. Transitioning it's a journey. It's a personal journey. It's your very own journey. Like was mentioned, sometimes other people might be telling you how you're supposed to go on that journey, but it ultimately it's up to you, and you're allowed to stop whenever you want, when you find your comfort. That is the goal, to become comfortable. I mean, I say it that way, but we never do stop changing, of course. That's the human experience in general. Um, so yeah, just be patient, be kind. Um, yeah, that's all I have. Thank you everyone for coming out today. This will basically be the wrap up of our transition week. Thank you for all of you for sharing your stories and your advice and experiences. And thank you all for coming out. That's all I have. Thank you. We're all in this together. We're all a community.
Yay!
That's
Round of
it.
applause.
Woo, community.
Yay!
Yay.
Thank you.
I do
Thank
have a
you.
little anecdote. I do have a little anecdote I can just toss in. I
Sure.
was hanging out at a bar with my trans man, complete. He passes very well. Partner, and a very intoxicated elderly man came up to us and started touting off on how he was 64, how he was going through life, how he was doing it, and how we were young. And he was, he was smacking us and all that stuff. And he noticed I was trans. Oh, you're transgender. He described the surgery in the worst way possible, but he was still trying to be friendly. He was trying to put into our heads. He was like, 30, you have a 5-year plan. You're going to mess it up for 35. Another 5-year plan doesn't go as well, doesn't go the way you think it is. Nothing ever goes the way you think it does. And his point was, he's 64 right now. He's still kicking it. He's not, the exact epitome of what he wanted to be when he was a child, but he is what he is, and he's still kicking it and doing fine. And you can too. If it doesn't work the first time, keep going, keep trying.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's great advice.
Yeah,
All right.
it was a really unsolicited interaction.
I love it. I love people who are blunt like that, can just throw out
Yeah.
their raw experience like that.
Oh yeah, just a raw experience.